A woman's life does not change when the world becomes kinder. It changes when her inner world becomes stronger. Self-awareness is the foundation of all inner transformation. Without it, change remains superficial and temporary. A woman may adjust her behavior, her routines, or even her environment. But if she does not understand the inner forces guiding her actions, she will repeat the same patterns in different forms. Self-awareness begins the moment she chooses to observe herself honestly, without excuses and without self-attack. This awareness requires stillness. In silence, she starts noticing her thoughts as they arise. She sees how quickly her mind judges, fears, or compares. Instead of believing every thought, she learns to watch them pass like clouds. This shift is powerful because it creates space between who she is and what she thinks. The moment she stops identifying with every mental story, she gains the ability to choose a different response. As self-awareness deepens, she becomes aware of emotional triggers. She notices how certain words, situations, or behaviors from others activate strong emotional reactions within her. Rather than blaming the external trigger, she turns inward and asks why it affects her so deeply. This questioning is not about criticism, it is about understanding. Often, these reactions reveal unhealed wounds, unmet needs, or long-standing fears. Awareness brings these hidden layers into the light, where they can no longer control her unconsciously. Through observation, she also recognizes patterns in her relationships. She may notice how she overgives, avoids confrontation, or seeks validation. These patterns did not appear randomly. They were formed as survival strategies in earlier stages of life. Self-awareness allows her to see these behaviors for what they are, learned responses, not permanent traits. With this understanding, she stops labeling herself as too much, too emotional, or not enough. She sees behavior as information, not identity. Another aspect of self-awareness is recognizing internal resistance. Growth often feels uncomfortable, and the mind naturally resists change. A woman practicing awareness notices when she avoids difficult conversations, procrastinates important decisions, or distracts herself to escape discomfort. Instead of forcing herself harshly, she acknowledges the resistance and sits with it. This compassionate observation weakens fear and builds inner trust. Self-awareness also sharpens her sense of responsibility. She realizes that while she cannot control others, she is responsible for how she responds. This realization shifts her from a victim mindset to an empowered one. She stops waiting for circumstances to change and begins adjusting her inner posture toward life. Even in difficult situations, she maintains dignity and clarity because she understands her inner state shapes her experience. With consistent self-awareness, her reactions slow down. She pauses before speaking, choosing her words carefully. She notices when emotions rise and allows them to settle before acting. This pause becomes a powerful tool. It prevents unnecessary conflict and creates space for wiser decisions. Over time, this practice reshapes her character from the inside out. Self-awareness is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming conscious. Through this consciousness, a woman learns to meet herself truthfully, accept what she sees, and grow from it with discipline and patience. Emotional discipline is the ability to feel deeply without being ruled by what is felt. Many women are taught, directly or indirectly, that emotions define them, that a strong emotional reaction is a sign of truth or urgency. But inner strength is built when a woman learns that emotions are signals, not orders. They arrive, they communicate, and they leave if she allows them to pass without attaching her identity to them. The practice of emotional discipline begins with permission. A woman allows herself to feel whatever arises without suppression or shame. Anger, sadness, disappointment, fear, None of these are weaknesses. They are natural responses to life. What creates suffering is not the emotion itself, but the unconscious reaction that follows. When she stops fighting emotions and instead observes them, she removes their power to overwhelm her. As she becomes more disciplined, she learns to pause. This pause is small but life-changing. Between stimulus and response, she creates space. In that space, she breathes, notices her body, and grounds herself. She does not rush to explain, defend, or attack. She understands that immediate reactions often come from old wounds rather than present reality. By delaying action, she protects her energy and preserves clarity. Emotional discipline also teaches her to separate emotion from action. Feeling angry does not require harsh words. Feeling hurt does not require withdrawal. Feeling fear does not require avoidance. She learns that she can feel one thing and choose another. This choice is the essence of inner stability. It allows her to move through difficult situations with composure, even when emotions are intense. With time, she begins to notice patterns in her emotional responses. Certain situations may repeatedly trigger insecurity, resentment, or self-doubt. Instead of labeling herself as overreacting, she treats these moments as opportunities for understanding. She observes where the emotion lives in her body, how long it lasts, and what thoughts feed it. This awareness weakens the emotional charge and builds resilience. Emotional discipline also reduces dependency on external validation. When a woman no longer needs others to regulate her emotions, she becomes internally anchored. Praise does not inflate her, and criticism does not destroy her. She appreciates kindness without relying on it, and accepts feedback without collapsing. Her emotional balance comes from within, not from fluctuating opinions. As discipline strengthens, emotional storms lose their intensity. She still feels, but she is no longer shaken. Her nervous system becomes calmer, her reactions slower, and her presence more grounded. People around her sense this stability. Her words carry weight because they are not driven by impulse, but by intention. This inner stability changes how she relates to challenges. Problems are no longer emergencies, they are situations to be handled. She meets conflict with steadiness and uncertainty with patience. Emotional discipline becomes a quiet strength, one that allows her to remain centered, clear, and self-directed in a constantly changing world. Letting go of ego is one of the most challenging forms of inner work because the ego often disguises itself as protection. It convinces a woman that she must prove her worth, defend her image, and seek recognition in order to be safe. At first, the ego feels like confidence, but over time it reveals itself as tension, constant comparison, sensitivity to criticism, and an exhausting need to be seen and validated. As a woman becomes more aware, she begins to notice how often her actions are influenced by how others might perceive her. She may speak to impress, stay silent to avoid judgment, or overachieve to feel enough. These behaviors are not flaws, they are survival strategies shaped by past experiences. Recognizing this softens self-blame and opens the door to change. Awareness allows her to see that her worth does not increase or decrease based on external approval. Letting go of ego does not mean shrinking or becoming passive. It means releasing attachment to image. A woman learns to do what is right rather than what is admired. She becomes comfortable being misunderstood, knowing that clarity within herself matters more than agreement from others. This shift brings an unexpected sense of freedom. Without the burden of performance, her actions become more authentic and her energy more focused. As ego loosens its grip, comparison loses its power. She stops measuring her journey against someone else's timeline. She understands that growth is internal and cannot be ranked. Instead of envy, she feels inspiration. Instead of competition, She feels curiosity. Her confidence becomes quiet because it is rooted in self-knowledge rather than superiority. Another layer of ego release involves accepting imperfection. The ego demands flawlessness and reacts harshly to mistakes. Inner work teaches her to see mistakes as information, not failure. She takes responsibility where needed, but refuses to punish herself endlessly. This balanced accountability builds resilience and self-trust. She becomes willing to try, fail, learn, and try again without fear of humiliation. Letting go of ego also transforms how she handles criticism. Feedback no longer feels like an attack on her identity. She listens without defensiveness, taking what is useful and releasing the rest. This ability to remain open without collapsing strengthens her presence. Others sense that she is grounded, not fragile, and this naturally earns respect. Over time, her confidence becomes steady rather than loud. She does not need to announce her strength or prove her value. She speaks when necessary and remains silent when silence serves her better. Her sense of self no longer depends on applause or recognition. This internal security allows her to move through life with humility and grace. True confidence is not built by elevating oneself above others, but by no longer needing to. When a woman releases the grip of ego, she gains clarity, emotional freedom, and a calm authority that cannot be shaken by praise or criticism. Self-respect is expressed not through loud declarations, but through quiet boundaries that are consistently honored. Many women struggle with boundaries not because they lack strength, but because they were taught to associate love with sacrifice and silence with peace. Inner work reveals that without boundaries, respect erodes, both from others and from oneself. A woman begins to understand that how she allows others to treat her becomes the standard for her life. The practice of setting boundaries starts internally. Before she can communicate limits to others, she must recognize them within herself. She notices when something feels draining, uncomfortable, or misaligned with her values. Instead of ignoring these signals, she listens. This listening is an act of self-respect. It requires honesty and courage, especially when honoring her limits risks disappointing others. As her awareness sharpens, she learns that boundaries are not punishments or ultimatums. They are clear expressions of what she will and will not accept. She stops over explaining or justifying her needs. Her communication becomes calm and direct. She understands that those who respect her do not require excessive explanations, and those who demand them are often benefiting from her lack of boundaries. Setting boundaries also means releasing the need to be liked by everyone. A woman practicing inner discipline accepts that not all relationships will survive her growth. Some people were comfortable when she was available, accommodating, and self-neglecting. When she begins to protect her energy, resistance may arise. Instead of retreating, she remains steady. This steadiness strengthens her self-trust and reinforces her sense of worth. Boundaries extend beyond relationships and into how she uses her time and energy. She becomes intentional about where she invests herself. She says no to obligations that do not align with her priorities. She creates space for rest without guilt. This discipline teaches her that her energy is finite and valuable. By conserving it, she shows her self-respect on a daily basis. Through consistent boundary setting, her presence changes. She no longer seeks permission to exist fully. Her words carry clarity because they are rooted in self-knowledge. Her silence, when she chooses it, is no longer avoidance but intention. People respond differently to her, not because she demands respect, but because she embodies it. Boundaries also protect her inner peace. When she knows where she stands, external chaos loses its influence. She does not absorb emotions that are not hers to carry. She allows others to feel disappointed, without feeling responsible for their emotions. This emotional independence is a sign of deep inner work. Over time, self-respect becomes a natural state rather than a struggle. Boundaries no longer feel like walls, but like filters, allowing what nourishes her to enter and keeping what drains her at a distance. Through this practice, a woman learns that honoring herself is not a betrayal of others, but a commitment to living with integrity and strength. Consistency is the silent force behind every lasting transformation. Inner work does not change a woman's life through sudden breakthroughs or dramatic moments of clarity. It reshapes her life through daily choices that are often invisible to others and sometimes uncomfortable to herself. A woman who commits to consistent inner work understands that discipline, not motivation, is what builds an unshakable foundation. Each day presents opportunities to return to old habits or to reinforce new ones. Consistency means choosing awareness again and again, even when it feels repetitive or slow. Some days the practice feels meaningful. Other days it feels empty. Still, she continues. She does not measure progress by emotional highs, but by stability. This steady return to the work strengthens her character in ways that sudden inspiration never could. Inner consistency also requires patience with time. Growth does not announce itself immediately. A woman may feel unchanged for weeks or months, yet beneath the surface, her nervous system is rewiring, her reactions are softening, and her perspective is shifting. Consistency teaches her to trust the process rather than demand instant results. This trust reduces anxiety and allows her to remain committed without frustration. Through repeated practice, her awareness becomes automatic. She begins to notice her thoughts before they spiral. She recognizes emotional shifts before they turn into reactions. This early awareness gives her more control, not through force, but through familiarity. The mind becomes a trained space rather than a chaotic one. What once required effort now feels natural. Consistency also builds emotional endurance. Life continues to test her with stress, disappointment, and uncertainty. Because she has practiced regulating herself daily, she does not collapse under pressure. She meets challenges with steadiness, knowing she has faced herself before and survived. This confidence is quiet, but deeply rooted. It does not depend on circumstances being favorable. A disciplined inner practice also strengthens her relationship with discomfort. Many people avoid discomfort at all costs, seeking distraction or escape. A consistent woman learns to stay present with difficulty. She does not rush to numb emotions or abandon herself when things feel heavy. This ability to remain with discomfort increases her resilience and expands her emotional capacity. Consistency also refines her values. When she shows up for her inner work daily, she becomes clearer about what matters. External noise loses its influence. She stops chasing trends, approval, or validation. Her decisions become aligned with her principles rather than her moods. This alignment creates inner peace, even when choices are difficult. As time passes, her identity shifts. She no longer sees herself as someone trying to change, but as someone who lives with discipline. This identity is powerful because it sustains itself. She does not need reminders or external pressure. Her practice becomes part of who she is. Consistent inner work also impacts her physical presence. Her posture changes, her voice steadies, and her movements become deliberate. Others sense this groundedness without her needing to explain it. She carries herself with certainty because she knows she has built herself from the inside. The unshakable nature of her life is not due to the absence of problems, but due to the presence of inner order. When chaos arises externally, she returns to her practices internally. Breath, awareness, reflection, and restraint become her anchors. These tools are always available, regardless of location or circumstance. Consistency teaches her humility. There are no shortcuts, no final destinations. Each day requires recommitment. Some days she will fall back into old patterns. Instead of self-judgment, she returns to the practice. This return is the real strength. It keeps her moving forward without arrogance or despair. Over time, the gap between who she is and who she wants to be narrows. Not because she forced change, but because she lived it daily. Inner work, practiced consistently, builds a life that is steady, intentional, and deeply rooted. A woman who commits to this path becomes resilient not through resistance, but through alignment with herself. Inner work is not a destination a woman reaches, but a way of living she chooses each day. Through awareness, emotional discipline, humility, self-respect, and consistency, she reshapes her inner world, and her outer life follows naturally. This work does not make her immune to pain, loss, or uncertainty, but it gives her the strength to meet them without losing herself. She no longer waits for life to become easier. She becomes stronger within it. When a woman commits to inner work, she stops seeking permission to be whole. She moves with clarity, responds with intention, and stands firmly in her values. Her power is quiet, her confidence grounded, and her presence undeniable. The world may continue to change, but she remains rooted. And from that rootedness, she creates a life that reflects truth, balance, and inner freedom.